Remember on Friday, lesson 2.5, we were practicing completing the square. And if I back up to the beginning of the notes, remember we started off by trying to have a perfect square on each side and just how do we solve by taking the square root of both sides, okay? So we worked with that, we did some factoring. Then we took that another step and we used it to do completing the square, okay? I have steps up there for you. Reminder, those are in your blue paper, so those will be available for the exam. You just have to understand how to use those steps, okay, how they work. Now, I asked you in the last few minutes of class to be trying to figure out C. Did we have some luck? No, a couple of you checked your answer with me on Friday, and you guys were on the right track. I don't know if some of you checked with each other also, but okay, let's go back and review, okay? Make sure we know what we're doing. So, step 1, rewrite the equation in the form x squared plus bx equals c. What do I need to do here?
Add 2.
Okay, one thing we need to do is add 2 to the other side because we need x squared and x on the left, and we need the constant on the right. So we're going to add 2. If I add 2, I now have the equation 2x squared plus 12x. Those 2's cancel, and we have a 2 on the right. Am I done with step 1? No, because?
You have to divide by 2.
Yeah, it has to be divided by 2. This just says in the form x squared. There's no a value, which means the number that has to be there is a 1. So, in order to get rid of that number in front of the x squared, we're going to divide by it. If we divide that term by it, you're dividing all terms by that a value. So then we have x squared plus 6x. I like to leave a gap here to prepare myself, and it equals 1. Okay? Now is step 1 complete? Yeah. Now we have x squared plus bx, so x squared plus 6x on the left equals c on the right. Okay, so step 1, complete. Step 2, complete the square by adding b over 2 squared to each side of the equation, which means I have to start off by finding b. What is my b in this equation currently?
6.
Yeah, make sure you look at the current b, which is 6. It helps you that your b's and 6's look at least a slight bit different. It does help. So we need to find b over 2 quantity squared. So that means I'm going to do 6 over 2 quantity squared. Well, 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Okay. What am I going to do with that 9? Complete the square by adding b over 2 squared to each side of the equation. So I'm going to add 9 on the left and add 9 on the right. Okay? That's where we add the 9 on those pieces. Okay, step 2 good? Step 2. Step 3. Step 3 says to factor the left side. Now, you can take either route here to help us. I've been automatically setting up 2 parentheses, but what do we know is supposed to happen with these 2 parentheses? They're going to be the same, aren't they? So could you go ahead and say, okay, I know it's going to be parentheses squared? You could. You don't have to write parentheses times parentheses if your brain can think that stuff and be like, I know it's going to be the same. So, okay, it's supposed to be a perfect square. X squared breaks up into x and x. What do I need my numbers to do? Multiply to be 9 and add to be 6. And it's a perfect square, so it should be the same number. What multiplies to be 9 and adds to be 6? 3 and 3. And since it's plus 9 and plus 6, this is going to be plus 3, yes? So I end up with x plus 3 quantity squared. Now, I kind of skipped over the right side there. Just clean up the right side. What do I have on the right? 1 plus 9 is 10. Okay, so there's step 3. We factored the left side. And this is what we were doing at the beginning of the notes on Friday, right? Step 4 says to, square root. We're solving at this point. So, we made a perfect square on the left. We're going to square root. What's the square root of x plus 3 squared? X plus 3. So we're going to write x plus 3 on the left. On the right, what's the square root of 10? Do we know the square root of 10? No, it's a decimal, so what do I leave it as? Square root of 10 with a plus or minus in front of it. Remember, when you take the square root in an equation setting, you always throw in a plus or minus to account for both roots. Okay, so step 4, did I square root both sides? Step 5, what am I doing?
Subtracting the 3.
Yeah, you just finish it off. Solve for x. If it's x plus 3, we're going to subtract 3. Now, when I write this out, and I'm going to come over here beside because I'm out of room, x equals, remember you could write plus or minus the square root of 10 minus 3. However,
Negative 3 plus or minus.
I prefer to have that plus or minus sign in the middle. So negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 10. And for the record, how many answers does that problem have?
1. 2.
Is it 2?
Yes.
Because negative 3 plus the square root of 10 is an answer, and negative 3 minus the square root of 10 is an answer. Like if you plug this into your calculator, you'll get 2 different answers out, right? Okay. Does this sound familiar? We didn't totally forget it from Friday, did we? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Let's run through D then. Okay, final review on D, and then we're going to go down and tweak our process to do something else in the bottom section. So, okay. Erase, ouch, my check marks. Okay, step 1. X squared minus 8x plus 17 equals 0. What do I need to do?
Subtract 17.
Okay, I'm trying to get the x squared and x term by themselves. So we're going to move this c value. I'm going to subtract 17. Good. I now have x squared minus 8x still. 17 moves, so it's 0. And 0 minus 17 on the other side is negative 17. Notice I like to leave that gap, don't I? Okay. Anything else for step 1? I'm actually done this time, aren't I? Because it's already a 1x squared, I don't have to divide. Okay. Step 2. Complete the square by adding b over 2 squared. What do we know? Okay. B is officially, if I want to be official, B is negative 8. In all honesty, is it going to matter for this specific piece right here? No. So we're doing B divided by 2 quantity squared. B is negative 8 divided by 2 and square it. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. And what are we doing? You're adding it to both sides. Okay. That's step 2. Step 3, we're going to factor. If you want, could you jump straight to that? X squared. I always ask x squared breaks into what and what? X and x. What's the square root of x squared? X, right? 16. I always ask what multiplies to be 16, what adds to be negative 8. Could I also just ask what's the square root of 16? What's the square root of 16? 4. Does 4 plus 4 add to be 8? It does if you make the 4 negative. So could you just jump to this step if you're comfortable? Now, if not, what am I going to say to do? I'll take the extra steps with you. I don't care. If you prefer to write the x minus 4 times x minus 4, do what you need to do. Okay? Clean up the right while we're at it. What is negative 17 plus 6? Negative 1. Okay?
What's 6? It's 16.
Okay. I said the wrong thing. You guys gave the correct answer for what you were reading my brain of. Negative 17 plus 16 is what it says. You said negative 1. That's what I needed. Okay. Now, next step. We factored. Now what? Square root. Step 4 says the square root. We're just reading through the steps. Square root of x minus 4 squared is x minus 4. What about the right? Okay. Plus or minus the square root of negative 1. So you got the plus or minus in there. Now, when I go to my next step and clean this up, what is the square root of negative 1? I. Should we say I?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole point of, I guess it was the lesson before, 2.4. Remember? I is equal to the square root of negative 1. So this really is x minus 4 equals plus or minus I. Okay? Could have done that in the step before, but. And what else? Yeah, step 5 is solve for x. So if it's x minus 4, we're going to add 4. How am I going to suggest you write that answer?
4 plus minus.
Yeah, 4 plus or minus I. And again, I'm not going to necessarily count you wrong if it's plus or minus I plus 4. It's just awkward. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just awkward. Especially to me as a math person. But I'll be happy if we can get them right. Okay. You have the steps, yes? Use the steps. I can't stress that enough. When you see anything in homework or anything about completing the square, use your steps, okay? Now, who was it? This homework or another homework? Might be this homework. Let me just make a little comment here real quick. If you were to see something, and I'm trying to think, for instance, if you were to see something like this line right here, where they say x squared minus x, 8x plus, and they give you a box to fill in. And they say complete the square. Okay? And I can't remember if it's this homework or if I'm thinking of a different homework. But it's an easy question. If they gave x squared minus 8x plus blank, fill in the blank, complete the square. Realize what do they want you to fill in? They're looking for the 16. Okay? They're looking right there for the 16. They're looking for you to do the b over 2 quantity squared. Okay, that's all they would want in that situation. But just kind of a beware there. And I may be saying that for nothing. Maybe I'm remembering a previous homework. But I feel like that might be in there. Okay? Okay. Let's look at the bottom. The bottom, we're doing a lot of the same steps, except slightly altered. Notice, I'm giving you steps again, aren't I? These same steps are on your blue paper. So we've just got to understand how to use them, what they mean. So we're being asked to write the equation in vertex form, and then state the vertex and identify it as a maximum or minimum point of the graph. Okay? So right now, these are all being given in standard form. Standard form being that ax squared plus bx plus c. Standard form is all fine and dandy, but I can't just look at it and know my vertex. Vertex form, remember, I can just look at this and I can say, oh, hey, there's h and k, there's my vertex. So we're going to use completing the square to convert this. So notice my steps. Big difference here is we don't have this equation where it's equal to a number or a zero. It's y equals. So we have to work a little different. First thing we're going to do is make it, instead of x squared plus bx equals c, it's going to be x squared plus bx, leave a blank in a set of parentheses, and then put the plus c outside of the parentheses. Okay? Step 2 is we're going to be doing that b over 2 squared piece again. The difference is, instead of adding it to both sides of the equation, we're going to add it inside the parentheses and subtract it outside. So I'll go through that with you. And then if an a value exists, you'll multiply the outside amount by a, and we'll talk about that. And then you're going to factor the parentheses. Once it's factored, you're in vertex form. Okay? So let's look at a, and I'll walk you through the steps. Y equals x squared plus 4x minus 6. First thing it asks us to do, rewrite it in this form. So basically, you're taking x squared plus bx and you're separating the c. So y equals, I'm going to put in parentheses, x squared plus 4x. I'm going to leave a gap. And then I'm going to put my minus 6 outside the parentheses. Are we good there? That's all step 1 is. Okay? If there's an a value, it's going to be a little trickier. But no a value here. So that's all step 1 is in this case. Step 2. Complete the square with b over 2 squared. So just like what we were doing on completing the square, we need to find b, yes? So what is my b in this problem? B is 4. So I'm going to do b over 2 squared. So 4 over 2 quantity squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. Now, okay, read carefully. Up above was added to both sides. I don't have both sides of the equation to work with because one side is a y. So we're going to what? Add it inside the parentheses. So I'm going to add 4 here. Okay. And then, what else does it say? Subtract it outside. So I'm going to subtract the 4 over here where the minus 6 is. And the idea is all goes to keeping this equation balanced. Okay. On the previous ones, when I added 4 on the left, added 4 on the right, I was keeping my equation balanced. On this one, I could add 4 over here and it's y plus 4. Because I'm just going to have to move it over and then it's going to be a minus 4. So I'm keeping it balanced by adding and subtracting 4 at the same place. Okay? So the equation is still the same piece. So that's step 2, if an a value exists. I didn't have an a here, so hold that thought. We'll talk about that in another example. Okay? Step 3 is your final step. Factor the parentheses. We just created a perfect square, folks. Can you guess what's going to happen? It's going to factor into 2 identical parentheses again. Now, does it help you to see it side by side? X squared, what do we know about x squared? x and x, or you can ask yourself, what's the square root of x squared? It's x. Multiplying to be 4. Well, what's the square root of 4? 2. Or what multiplies to be 4 and adds to be 4? 2 and 2, yes? What signs are we using? Plus. So I can rewrite this as x plus 2 quantity squared. And then what's outside? Minus 6 minus 4 becomes a minus 10. This right here is your vertex form. Just like that up there. Okay? Question about this?
Not that this my stomach's being feels like it's being turned upside down. May I go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Sorry.
No. I'd rather you be in the bathroom. Okay.
Sorry.
Y equals x plus 2, quantity squared, minus 10. There's your vertex form. Now, what else did it ask us to do? State the vertex and identify it as a max or min. Okay? Now, let's start with vertex.
2 and -1.
Almost. -2, -10. Go back and remember, I know it's been a bit. -2, -10, because this says x minus h up here. Use the opposite of whatever sign is in that parentheses. So it's -2, and then the k value, since it's plus k up there, you just use the sign given. Okay? Or just think about it. This graph would be right or left 2, down 10. So -2, -10. Now, thoughts on if this is a max or a min? Okay, we got both answers out there. Here's going to be my question. Which way is this parabola opening?
Up.
Is it opening up or is it opening down?
Down.
What kind of a value do I have out front? Positive. What's a positive a value suggest? A positive a value, right, is going to suggest that it opens up. Where's my vertex if my graph opens up?
-2.
But is it at the top of the graph or the bottom of the graph? It's at the bottom, so that makes this a minimum. You might want to write yourself a note about that if we don't remember those details. Okay? But this is, and we could even go right here. Okay? Because that is positive, then my graph opens like this, and that is a minimum when it's at the bottom of the graph. Does that sound familiar? It's not a maximum because it's a positive a value. It's exactly the opposite of that, actually. Okay? Okay, questions there? I almost feel like this is maybe the little bit harder part after what we just did, but. Okay, let's try B. Y equals 2x squared plus 12x plus 9. Okay. Rewrite in the form y equals x squared plus bx and then plus c. Let's start by separating it. What's going to go in the parentheses? Officially, right now, it's the 2x squared plus 12x. And then what happens? We leave a blank, and what goes outside the parentheses? The c value, plus 9. Now, what's slightly different about this one? There's an a value, isn't there? Can we have that a value there? No. Now, when we're completing the square, we could just divide everything by 2 and get rid of it. We can't do that this time because we don't want to lose our a value. So, with that in mind, I'm going to tell you to factor this 2 out front. We're only going to factor it out of those 2 parentheses. So here, work with me. Y equals, I'm going to put the 2 out front of the parentheses. If I factor a 2 out, 2x squared divided by 2 becomes what? X squared plus 12x divided by 2 becomes 6x. You still have that blank in the parentheses, and you still have a plus 9. So that's how we deal with the a value. The a value becomes a GCF, and you factor it out. Good? Okay, that was step 1. Step 2, let's talk about what b is. What is my current b? You got that? Notice I said current b. So b is 6. So remember, we're doing b over 2, quantity squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Okay. What do we do with that 9?
Subtract it from the outside and add it on the inside.
Okay. So I'm still going to add it in the parentheses like normal, but we're going to do the opposite, and we're going to subtract it outside. Now, what did it say that I didn't need to know last time, but I need to know this time? If an a value exists, do we have an a value this time? Yeah, because 2 is an a value, isn't it? Okay, that's an a value. If an a value exists, multiply the outside amount by a. So here's the deal. This plus 9 I put in the parentheses. What are the parentheses being multiplied by? A 2. So this 9 is being multiplied by a 2, and it's really 2 times 9. So I just added a value of 18 because it's being multiplied by a 2. I have to be consistent. If I'm adding a value of 18 inside the parentheses, what do we have to do outside the parentheses? We have to subtract a value of 18. So, again, it's because we had an a value of 2. Okay? Questions there? Okay, I think that's the last little trick I'm going to add. So, factor. So if we factor here, I'm running out of room. What do my parentheses factor into? 3 and 3, yes? So that's x plus 3, x plus 3. So I'm going to write this as I have a 2 out front, x plus 3, quantity squared, because 3 times 3 is 9, 3 plus 3 is 6. What goes out back here? It's 9 minus 9 times 2. Well, 9 times 2 is 18. 9 minus 18 is minus 9. Okay. Okay. I need to know the vertex. Do we know the vertex?
-3 and -9.
Yep. I hope you're with her because I agree. -3, -9. And then, is it a maximum or a minimum? Is it a minimum again? My a value again is positive, yes? My a value is positive. This parabola opens up, and that puts it at the bottom, which is a minimum. Okay. One more. Before I even start this problem, can you tell me if my vertex is going to be a min or a max? It's going to be a what? It's going to be a max, isn't it? Because right here, my A value is negative, right? So if it's negative, that means my parabola is going to be upside down, and this is a max, yes? So that's just, it's a review, but I know it's something that we didn't all remember. Okay. X squared plus bx in parentheses. So for right now, I'm going to write negative 2x squared plus 20x in parentheses. I'm going to leave a gap. I'm going to put minus 42 at the outside. Am I done with step one?
No,
Not exactly, am I?
you have to take the negatives from the outside. Divide it by
Okay. We have to factor out the GCF there. Okay, we have to get the A value outside. So negative 2. Negative 2x squared divided by negative 2 leaves me with what I want, which is x squared. Most importantly, what's 20x divided by negative 2?
minus 10.
Minus 10x. And then we have that gap ready to go. Okay, that was step one, rewrite. Step two. What is B?
10x.
Right here, yes? Okay, so I'm officially going to say negative 10. I know, negative doesn't really matter for what we're doing, but B divided by 2 squared. Negative 10 divided by 2 squared. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Okay. What are we doing with that 25?
Adding on the inside square.
Okay, we're going to add the 25 inside, and we're going to subtract the 25 outside. What do you need to check?
Comes at max speed.
Was there an A value? Yeah, there was an A value, wasn't there? A is negative 2, so you're going to multiply by negative 2. Okay?
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. Step 2. Did we complete the square?
Yes.
Yeah. So don't forget to multiply by that A value. Step 3 is to factor. Can you see what x squared minus 10x plus 25 is going to factor into? Are we going to be pros? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah. X and x, 25. The square root of 25 is 5. If it adds to be negative 10, what do I need here?
Minus 5.
Minuses, right? Because it's going to add to be negative 10. So
X minus 5.
x minus 5 squared, and what's out front? So negative 2. X minus 5 squared. What do we have over here? Negative 25 times negative 2, I'm seeing as plus 50. Negative 42 plus 50 is going to be plus 8. Okay. Vertex.
Negative 5.
5, 8. Remember, it's opposite sign of whatever's in the vertex. So that makes it positive 5, and then the plus 8. Is this vertex going to be a max or a min?
Max.
My parabola is upside down, which puts my vertex at the top, so it is a maximum.
Yay.
Okay. You have homework that's available in Savas. It would have popped up on Friday. And it should be there and should say due tomorrow. You have a few minutes of time to be looking at it.